Good evening and welcome to Prime Time News. I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Let's take a look at the headlines for tonight.
What happened during 167 days of detention? Vasantha Mudulige reveals it all.
පාලු ගංගායිනට අරගෙන ගිහිල්ලා රෙද්දකින් ඔතලා මාංචුත් දාලා ආයුධ ටික වටේටම දාලා ඉවර වෙලා දුරකථන ඇමතුම් ලබා ගන්නවා ඒ ගිය ආරක්ෂක නිලධාරියා.
Police approach Attorney General to file an appeal regarding Vasantha Mudulige's case. CEB gives an assurance to the Supreme Court on power cuts. Mahanayaka Thero still president not to implement the 13th Amendment in full. Another millionaire businessman found dead. Body found in swimming pool in Pelavatta residence. Cost-cutting circular will not impact the local government election, says National Election Commission. Paris Club to give Sri Lanka financing assurances amid IMF debt talks. The depression over the southwest Bay of Bengal has entered Sri Lanka.
First up in news here at home. The convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation, Vasantha Mudulige, attended a media briefing for the first time in 167 days today.
University teachers, trade union representatives, civil activists among others were present for this media briefing, the Centre for Society and Religion in Mathura. Vasantha Mudulige elaborated on his experiences while in detention.
අත්අඩංගුවට ගත්තේ පෑලියගොඩ විශේෂ පොලිස් ඒකක ASP මහින්ද විලෝආරච්චි කියන පුද්ගලයා.
I was arrested by ASP Mahinda Viloarachi from the Paliagoda Special Police Unit. He arrested me on a warrant and took me to the Paliagoda Police. No explanation was given and I was hidden inside the Paliagoda Police. The next morning, before anyone was awake, I was put into a vehicle with my head covered and taken to the Enderamulla Police. The Enderamulla Police was empty when I was taken there. At the Enderamulla Police, the person identified as ASP Mahinda Viloarachi placed a pistol on the table, pointed towards me and asked if I recall what happened to Vijay Veera and Vijay Kumaratunga. He said, that is what I deserved. However, given the situation, I would not be killed. He hinted to return in a few years by late post.
තැපලා අවුරුදු දෙකකින් විතර වරෙන් කියලා ASP මහින්ද විලෝආරච්චි කියනවා. ඊට පස්සේ එතනින් එහාට අපිව වාහනවල දාගෙන කවුරුත් දන්නේ නැති විදියට.
Thereafter, I was put into another vehicle and taken in secret to the foreshore police dorm. We were taken to a basement room and covered in cloth and kept inside that dark room for hours without being questioned. At the Paliagoda Police, the plan was devised to deny us the opportunity to meet the council, civil organization representatives and the Human Rights Commission. On the morning of the 21st, the police put us into another vehicle and took us to a car park close to the Navagamo Devalaya. There is a 10-feet drop to the isolated river. They took us there, handcuffed us, placed their weapons all around and started making phone calls. That officer said over the phone that we have arrived at the location. The vehicle was placed there arousing suspicions and a police officer assigned to the security of the Navagamo Devalaya came and inquired over the suspicious vehicle. The police officers saw this and wanted to chase away that inquiring officer. That was how they acted. A certain officer said that in the past, well-known underworld members were killed in this manner. They mentioned the name of Madhush and said this is how they killed Madhush. They said how they devised their plans when the DO period was ending. They said how they searched for areas with no CCTV coverage. They mentioned how they shot. They warned us not to create issues. I am stating this responsibly. We will take action against them.
එහෙම අපි මෙන්න මෙහෙම තමයි ෂූට් කරේ. ඒ නිසා වැඩිපුර සද්ද දාන්න එපා කියලා කිව්වා. ඊටාම වගකීමෙන් අපි කියන්නේ. මේවට අදාළ ඉදිරියේදී ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගන්නවා. එතකොට මෙන්න මෙහෙම කරද්දි පැය 72ක් රඳවා ගැනීමක් කරා කිසිම උසාවියකට ඉදිරිපත් කිරීමක් කරන්න.
We were detained for 32 hours and were not produced to any court during that period. Our issue is this. We were arrested on warrants, and until the detention order under the Prevention of Terrorism Act was signed, for a period of 3 days, the police was planning on how to kill us and how to force us to our knees. This question is to the IGP. If we were arrested for an investigation, the Navagamo car park, the foreshore police dorm basement, the Enderamulla police and the jungle behind it, are these investigation sites? When we were handed over to the Terrorist Investigation Division, it was ASP Ratnayaka who jumped at the opportunity to take charge of these investigations.
ASP රත්නායක කියන නිලධාරියා තමයි මේ විමර්ශන ටික පැනලා බාරගත්තේ. එතකොට මේ TID එකේ විමර්ශනයේ බාරව හිටපු
ASP Ratnayaka from the TID is the main accused in the case filed over the murder of a person called Ami Suranga, who was killed after being arrested. While there were officers like ASP Viloarachi from the Paliagoda Police and ASP Ratnayaka from the TID, many other police officers protected us. When we were taken away in secret to police stations, the police officers who were at those police stations protected us. That is why we are able to come forward and speak like this today.
වෙන වෙන පොලිසිවල ගිහිල්ලා කැලෑස්සේ අපිව දානකොට ඒ පොලිසිවල හිටපු සහෝදර සහෝදරියම්ම විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් අපිව ආරක්ෂා කරමු නිසා තමයි අදටත් අපිට ඔබ ඉස්සරහ මේ විදිහට කතා කරන්න පුළුවන්කම හම්බුනේ.
Vasantha Mudalige stressed that the struggle against oppression will continue.
හැබැයි තාම මර්ධනය නතර කරලා නැහැ.
They have not ceased their oppression. They are drafting various laws on how they can continue with oppression. The Prevention of Terrorism Act is a barbaric act. It is one that needs to be abolished. We will make the necessary interventions to abolish such acts. Do not assume that the struggle is over because we were released. We will continue this struggle until the PTA is repealed and the political prisoners are released. In addition, we will continue with this struggle until all the brothers in the north and south who have been arrested under the PTA with bogus charges are released.
අරන් ඉන්න උතුරේ සහෝදරවරු දකුණේ සහෝදරවරු සියලු දෙනා නිදහස් කර ගැනීම සඳහා මේ අරගලය අකණ්ඩව යනවා.
The Police Media Division announced that Sri Lanka Police has requested the Attorney General to produce an appeal in accordance with the existing legal provisions over the court order given to Vasantha Mudalige. The students of the Peradeniya University protested against the suppression of the students. The students arrived opposite the university premises in a protest march.
At this time, not only the University of Peradeniya, but the entire university system is under massive repression. The president and the secretary of the university's student union were arbitrarily suspended. Why are they taking away the students' freedom to education?
Meanwhile, the Ceylon Electricity Board has assured the Supreme Court that it would refrain from imposing power cuts until the petition filed by the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka is taken up for consideration and the matter is concluded.
The Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka moved to the Supreme Court against the Ceylon Electricity Board for failing to follow the directive to provide an uninterrupted supply of electricity until the end of the GCE Advanced Level Examination. The matter was called up in the presence of Supreme Court Justices P. Padman Surasena, Yasantha Kodagoda and Shiran Gunaratne on Thursday. President's Counsel Upul Jayasuriya, appearing for the petitioner, sought for an interim order to ensure that the electricity supply will not be suspended during the examination period, as students would be inconvenienced by power outages. The court noted that the matter was sensitive in nature and ordered the respondents to inform the court within half an hour over the possibility of making an undertaking to refrain from imposing power cuts during the said period. When the application was called up again half an hour later, President's Counsel Udite Egalaheva, appearing for the Ceylon Electricity Board, gave an assurance to the Supreme Court. The application will be called up again on Friday morning. The Secretary to the Ministry of Power and Energy, the Chairman of the Ceylon Electricity Board, the Chairman of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, the Chairman and members of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, among 10 factions, were named as respondents.
We generated electricity using hydropower on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. We provided electricity without any outage for 2 days. However, we could not yesterday, and the reason, I believe, was though it rained, there was an issue in obtaining the sufficient amount of water. I assume the political authority wants to suspend the supply instead of providing electricity. I believe we can operate the next 15 days without any outage with the available water capacity. There was an outage yesterday. However, today we achieved a victory to provide electricity to the students.
Earlier, the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka announced that there would be no power cuts due to the availability of sufficient water capacity and naphtha for the generation of electricity until the advanced level examinations are over. The Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka had requested the Mahaweli Water Management Secretariat to release 2 gigawatt hours of water daily from the hydropower reservoirs to generate electricity. Following this request, an uninterrupted supply of electricity was provided for 2 days. However, the CEB imposed a 2-hour and 20-minute power cut on Wednesday without the approval of the PUCSL. The CEB said it was compelled to impose a power cut due to low water capacity in hydropower reservoirs. The active water capacity of almost all Mahaweli reservoirs except for Rantambe and Bovathanna had exceeded 50% on Thursday. The water capacity at the Victoria Reservoir was 71.6% and for Randanigala it was 78.7%.
සතියක් එකමාරක විතර වතුර තිබ්බනම් ඇති. ඒ අවශ්‍ය වතුර ප්‍රමාණයෙන් 70%ක් විතර වර්ෂා ජලයෙන් සම්පූර්ණ කරගන්න පුළුවන්. මේ මහා කන්නේ ජලාශවල වතුර පුරව ගන්න බැරි නම් ඒක ඇමතුමා එතන තියෙන ඩීල් එකක්. මහා පොළවේ තියෙන යථාර්ථය දන්නේ නැති. නේ අර වීදුරු කාමරවල ඉඳලා ප්‍රතිපත්ති හදන ඇමතුමා මේ බිමේ තියෙන ඇත්ත தත්ත්වය ගොවියෝ දන්නවා. ඒ නිසා ඔය බොරු ටෝක් දෙන්න එපා ජනතාවට. දැන් මේ කුඹුර වලට වතුර අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. ජලාශවල ඕන තරම් වතුර තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා ඒ ජලාශ වලින් විදුලි බල උත්පාදනය කරා නම් තියෙන ජලාශ වලින් වතුර ටික මේවා කරලා විදුලි උත්පාදනය කරා නැත්නම් හැමදාම ලයිට් කපන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. මේගොල්ලෝ මේ කරන්නේ මේ බොරුවක්. කරුණාවෙන් මේ ඉල්ලා හිටින්නේ අපිට මේ කුසුම කර්මාන්තයේ දැන් ජලය ඇති ප්‍රමාණයට අපිට ජලය තියෙනවා. වැව් පිරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා කරුණාකරලා ජලාශවල තියෙන වතුර ඇරලා විදුලි බල නිෂ්පාදනය කරලා මේ රටේ ඉගෙන ගන්න අනාගතයේ මේ බාර ගන්න ඉන්න දරු පරපුර වෙනුවෙන් අපිට ලයිට් ටික දෙන්න.
Newsfirst contacted the director of the Mahaweli Water Management Secretariat, DMJ Dhanapala, to inquire why it was decided to suspend the releasing of water to generate electricity to benefit the student. He refused to comment, citing that he was preparing a response to court.
They are not releasing fuel and are concealing the naphtha. However, they have fuel for the air show. They had fuel to operate their jeeps to travel from Kolpiti to Divulapiti to arrest us. However, it appears that the minister who hates the people and the cabinet are not sensitive towards the people and the students.
ජනතාව කෙරෙහි සංවේදී භාවයක් කොහෙත්ම නැති බවක් තමයි අපි දකින්නේ.
This was the public's response to the issue.
කපනවා කියනවා කපන්න නැtei කියනවා වෙලදාමක් කරගන්න නැහැ කෙනෙකුට කඩි ඇතුළට එන්න. අපේ සියලුම ව්‍යාපාර කටයුතු කරන්නේ විදුලියෙන්. අපිට විදුලිය නැතුව එක විනාඩියක්වත් මේ ව්‍යාපාර කටයුතු කරගෙන යන්න අමාරුයි. මේගොල්ලෝ කපනවා කියන අපිට වෙලාවක් කියන්නෙත් නැහැ හරියට. ඒ නිසා අපිට කීතිම වැඩක් ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑම් කරගන්න බෑ.
ඇයි මේ විදුලි ප්‍රශ්නේ මොකක්ද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? ඇයි අපිට මේක මහා අපරාධයක් විදිහට තන තත්ත්වයක් තියෙන්නේ? අපිට මේ අපරාධය තවත් දුරටත් ඉවසගෙන
When inquiring into the matter, it is clear that a more broad scope of investigation is necessary with regard to the power generation sector in the country.
For months, the country of 22 million people faced hours-long power cuts and the robust healthcare system is nearing collapse. Many factions of the health sector have constantly pointed out the gravity of this problem. An awareness program took place at the Ragama Teaching Hospital on Thursday.
There is a severe shortage of essential life-saving medicines, including basic medical equipment, which are mainly required for surgeries. We've come to a point where there is a shortage of plasters used for cannulas. The patients have to purchase these from outside. When you consider the Mahargam Apeksha Hospital, the main drugs given to treat cancer patients are also not available. In addition, there is a shortage of many drugs, including essential medicine, in many hospitals. There is a shortage of drugs used for anesthesia when performing surgeries as well.
The patients who visited the hospital to obtain medicine were severely inconvenienced. Today, a protest was staged opposite the National Institute for Mental Health Sciences, emphasizing the crisis faced by the health sector. Against this backdrop, the Health Minister requested permission from the court yesterday to fly overseas in order to get the required medicine for the country.
Is the Health Minister flying overseas? It's not relevant whether he is going to Europe, India, Australia. If public funds are spent for this trip and if the drugs are purchased with the public money, then the medicine should be given to the general public. Justice should be served to the people of this country. We have seen that in the past too. There were accusations about the Health Minister's overseas trips. At that time, he put on a show on media and made various statements. He never gave a formidable answer to the real question. If the same thing is happening now as well, the end result will just be public funded holidays and overseas trips for this group. While they live their lives lavishly, they must remember that we are battling with a health crisis. When your children, your parents or your loved ones suffer without medicine, when their lives are at risk without medicine, when the people of this country lose their lives due to the complications that occur as a result of the medicine shortage, they are held responsible.
කුලතාවලින් මේ රටේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ ජීවිත නැති වෙනකොට ඒට වග කියන්න වෙන්නේ මේ හැමෝටමයි කියන එක මතක තියාගන්න.
The Sri Lankan people have already been battered by a high cost of living and a shortage of medicine, and in the midst of that, the government has introduced a tax policy. Protest against the unjust tax regime continued with the participation of employees from the Sri Lankan Airlines and the Airport and Aviation Services Private Limited at the Katunayake Airport premises.
As law-abiding professionals, we are ready to pay taxes, but we do not want to pay taxes to the people who looted the banks and the people who want 10% in commissions. We urge the government to withdraw this unjust tax. If not, the government will experience something bitter in the future.
අවාසනාවන්ත තත්වයකට මේ රජයට නැවතත් මුහුණ දෙන්න සිදු වෙනවා ඉදිරි අනාගතයේදී.
This week's Face the Nation discussed the new tax reform. CEO of PwC, Sujeeva Muddalige, pointed out the futility of the tax in recovering Sri Lanka's large deficit.
Government thinks we can get out of this rut by taxing the people. If the politicians think that they can do that, I mean, they are mistaken, and that's the wrong policy framework to follow. Because as you can see, the deficit for the first 27 days is 368 billion rupees. Say you collect another 10 billion through taxation, 358, drop in the ocean. So what is required is that, yes, we need to pay more taxes, but at the same time, there's many more things that we need to do. The first and the most important thing is cut expenditure. If you don't cut expenditure, what is it right now? Our recurrent expenditure is 128 billion for the first 27 days, and our debt servicing is 377 billion. Mind you, you can imagine what it would have been if the debt moratorium was not there. Right? So this is completely unsustainable. We cannot get out of this by simply taxing the corporate.
Sri Lanka is gearing up to celebrate the 75th Independence Day at a cost of rupees 200 million, and a rehearsal took place at Golface Green this morning.
Secretary of Defence, retired General Kamal Gunaratne, Chief of Defence Staff General Shavendra Silva, and the commanders of the three armed forces inspected the rehearsals in Colombo. The 75th Independence Day celebrations will take place on Saturday, with the President attending as the chief guest. The military march past took place on Thursday morning with the participation of the Air Force and the Navy as well.
You now witness before you the T-89.
Commonwealth Secretary General Patricia Scotland, as well as representatives from SAARC nations, will attend the grand event.
The centre road at Golface will be closed completely from 2 p.m. on Friday for the processions. Vehicular movement will be restricted from the NSA roundabout to the Golface roundabout. A limited number of vehicles will be permitted to travel along Baladaksha Mahatha from the NSA roundabout to the Old Defence Ministry. After 2 p.m, the area from the Golface roundabout to the Old Defence Ministry will be closed until the end of the celebrations. In addition, Marine Drive from Bambalapitiya railway station to Kollupitiya junction will be closed from 6 p.m. on Friday.
Special security arrangements were in place in Kandy on Thursday as the President attended several events in the hill capital. The commemorative stamp issued by the Philatelic Bureau and the special commemorative coin issued by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka on the occasion of the 75th National Independence Day was presented to President Ranil Wickremesinghe at the Presidential Palace in Kandy. Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe called on the Mahanayaka Theros of the Malwatu and Askiri chapters and received their blessings. The President visited the Malwatu Mahaviharaya and called on the Mahanayaka of the Malwatu chapter of the Siam sect, the Most Venerable Pibbatuave Sri Sumangala Thero. The President inquired about the Mahanayaka Thero's well-being and offered Atapirikara to the Mahasangha. A statement issued by the Chief Registrar of the Malwatu chapter, Venerable Dr. Pahamune Sri Sumangala Thero, noted that the current economic crisis, debt restructuring, government tax policy, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution and the Kandy city development were directed to the President's attention during the meeting. The Mahanayaka of the Malwatu chapter of the Siam sect had pointed out that the current tax policy adopted by the government has severely inconvenienced the people and an immediate people-friendly relief program needs to be implemented. President Ranil Wickremesinghe then visited the Askiri Mahaviharaya and called on the Mahanayaka of the Askiri chapter of the Siam sect, the Most Venerable Varakagoda Sri Gnanaratana Thero, and engaged in a brief discussion. The Mahasangha, led by the Mahanayaka of the Askiri chapter, chanted Setpirit, invoking blessings on the President.
The Mahanayaka Theros have addressed a letter to the President urging that he does not implement the 13th Amendment to the Constitution that would lead to serious issues concerning the country's independence, territorial integrity and national security. The Mahanayaka Theros in a joint communique noted that the President's statement on the full implementation of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution had created a state of confusion in the country. The Mahanayaka Theros also noted that the provision of police and land powers and related matters in the 13th Amendment to the Constitution would further pave the way to divisions in the country. They also noted that all previous presidents in the country refrained from fully implementing the 13th Amendment to the Constitution as they understood it could lead to a state of confusion in the country. The Mahanayaka Theros noted that the executive president is bound with the responsibility of protecting the mandate of the people, and the implementation of such constitutional amendments that would lead to the collapse of the independence of the central government would attract public condemnation. The Mahanayaka Theros informed the President that he must reject such proposals that threaten the territorial integrity and independence of the country, though pressure is exerted to agree to certain conditions in order to access the support of regional and global powers to address the economic crisis in the country.
Meanwhile, views were expressed regarding the implementation of the 13th Amendment at a press conference held in Colombo today.
උතුරේ ජනතාවත් පරිස්සම් වෙන්න ඕනේ. මේ තියෙන්නේ රටේ ජනතාවට ඉඩම් දෙන්න නෙවෙයි.
The people of the north should also be careful. They are not coming to give lands to the people of the north. This is a ploy to give these lands to multinational companies, including the Adani Group. President Ranil Wickremesinghe is going to do this for the sake of international interest. If this decision is not revoked before the 8th of February, we are telling the President not to play with the people's mandate. Read the books of history. Recall what happened to Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
ඉතිහාසය කියවන්න. ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂට වෙච්ච දේ ගැන අධ්‍යයනය කරන්න.
ඡන්දයක් අභිමුඛයේ එතුමා ගහන උප්පරවැට්ටිත් එක්ක
The implementation of 13A should be immediately withdrawn. He is just playing games before the election. Make a statement on Independence Day. If not, we will call a Mahasangha conference in Colombo on the 8th against this decision. We will defeat this.
සංඝ සමුළු ඇතුලේ අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මේක පරාජයට පත් කරන්න.
Parliamentarian Gajendra Kumar Ponnambalam also commented on the 13th Amendment.
The UN Periodic Review called on Sri Lanka to repeal the PTA. India wants the 13th Amendment implemented and provincial council elections to take place. The government says it is paramount to overcome the current crisis. They are trying to portray the 13th Amendment that we have been rejecting for 36 years as the need of the Tamil people and as the solution to the national issue. The reason for this is because those who are appointed by us are also party to this agenda.
Provincial councils are formed because of the 13th Amendment. But enacting the land and police powers is, I am totally against it for so many reasons. One, giving politicians the power to control land powers as well as police could be very corrupt. At the moment, I think if we are going to go ahead with the existing 13th Amendment, we must stay as it is. What actually we suggest is go for a new constitution with the discussion of all the provincial councils, to have a discussion with all the political parties. There is power overlapping as well, which is also a waste of money. And giving police powers to a set of politicians will corrupt the whole system. It's not only to the north and east, will also create unnecessary havoc.
News First with the people.
The body of a millionaire businessman was found in a swimming pool at a residence in Palavatta. Police spokesperson SSP Nihal Talduwa told News First that the body was discovered this afternoon. The deceased businessman was identified as Roshan Vandinayaka, a well-known name in the apparel industry in Sri Lanka. He was a 50-year-old and was unmarried, living in Vallampitiya. His body was found in the rooftop swimming pool of a house under construction that also belonged to him. Relatives said that he was last seen leaving his Vallampitiya home on the 31st of January and never returned. Relatives had also filed a missing persons complaint with the Vallampitiya police. Sri Lanka police said that the deceased businessman's sister had visited the Palavatta house and discovered the body on Thursday. Police said that the cause of the death is yet to be determined, and the acting magistrate of Kaduvela Kamal Vijaysivi visited the site and conducted the inquiry, and thereafter the body was removed from the premises.
Sri Lanka's election headquarters.
The National Election Commission says that the new circular issued slashing the recurring expenses by 6% will not hinder the local government elections. Chairman of the National Election Commission, Attorney Nimal Punchiheva, stated that the Commission is currently working to reduce election expenses. The chairman stated that if the amount requested from the Treasury is not received, it will cause an issue. The approximate cost of the local government election was 10 billion rupees, and the cost was approved via the budget that was passed in Parliament. The Ministry of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policy has issued a circular on a 6% reduction in recurrent expenditure allocated for the year 2023 for government expenditure management.
The SLPP summoned all its organisers to the party headquarters today. A special discussion was held under the patronage of the party's national organiser Basil Rajapaksa.
We called all the district leaders, electorate organisers and authorised representatives of the SLPP in order to discuss on creating the necessary environment to prepare for the upcoming election.
ඡන්දේ තියන්නේ ගැසට් කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
ඔබතුමන්ලානේ මේකේ පක්ෂයේ හොඳම කටර්ස්ලා කියන්නේ අපි අර. ඇයි මොකද මේ ෂෝට් ටර්ම් සීට් ඇඟ බේරගන්නේ?
නැහැ පරිණත වෙන.
ඔය එහෙම වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
ඒ පරිණත වෙනවනේ.
දැන් ඇත්තටම ඔබතුමන්ලා රැස්වීම කියන්නද වෙනදන
අපි තියෙනවා.
ගාතු රුකේ කොට මකක් ජනරල්
ඒ ක්‍රම සහ විදි තියෙනවා. එක එක කාලවලට එක එක ක්‍රම සෙනග ඇති වෙනවා සෙනග පෙන්නන්න.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa emphasised that the SJB will put an end to the corrupt culture. He made these remarks at a public meeting held in Kinnia.
මන්ත්‍රීවරු පෝසත්තුණු කාලේ ඉවරයි. ඕන්න මන්ත්‍රීවරයාගේ පොකට් එකකින් ජනතාවට සේවය කරන්න අවසරය තියෙනවා. ඒක අනිත් පැත්තට බෑ. අනිවාර්යෙන්ම
The time that politicians get wealthy is no more. The politicians have the permission to serve the people of this country using their personal money. It cannot happen vice versa. We will end the corrupt culture created by the Rajapaksa regime. The SLPP that incited racism and destroyed the country will also see its end. A conspiracy was plotted by the SLPP and the UNP to destroy Sajith Premadasa back then. Today, the same group is plotting to destroy the people of this bankrupt country. When the SJB wins this time, we will defeat this conspiracy. We are committed to making this country victorious.
අලි පොහට්ටු කුමන්ත්‍රණය පරාජය කරලා රට දිනවන්නට අපි අපගත වෙනවයි කියලා මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
The launch of the Transparency Incorporate Reporting Assessment 2022 took place at the BMICH premises this evening. Transparency International stressed on the importance of addressing the systematic corruption.
All know that we are operating in a context of widespread systemic corruption. The lower levels of the companies who are coerced into collective action would help us to form a bulwark against this kind of corruption. And in the same way, we also have to acknowledge that we have a serious problem of collusive corruption. As I said, this is the first step to acknowledge that the private sector is a key stakeholder and therefore a key stakeholder in working towards that solution. There is a deeper problem than what can be even assessed through the track report that we need to collectively address.
Transparency and accountability were also matters discussed at this event.
Transparency, it is like an antidote to corruption. The more transparent an office, an organization, a country, governance is, the more difficult it is for corruption to happen. Because when you're transparent, you're also allowing to be questioned. You are allowing yourself to be held accountable. Then you need to ensure that transparency goes, of course, beyond the paperwork with regard to actual practices within the organization. So,
the top 16 companies of the Track Assessment 2022 were felicitated, and top companies that were significantly transparent and completely transparent were also recognized. We move on to a quick commercial break. Stay tuned.
News First. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you. Experience the best in healthcare at Durden's Hospital's new Alfred Place wing. We continue to evolve into a purpose-built hospital of the future, with an ambience built to deliver world-class care. Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you.
Back. Continuing in more local news, the Department of Meteorology says the depression over southwest Bay of Bengal has entered through the east coast of Sri Lanka and is moving across the country.
The department predicts cloudy sky will prevail over most parts of the island and showers or thunder showers will occur at times in the northern, north central and eastern provinces, with showers or thunder showers elsewhere during afternoon or night. The Met Department predicts heavy showers above 100 millimeters in the northern, north central, eastern and over provinces and in the Putlam district. The naval and fishing communities are advised not to venture into the above mentioned sea areas during the next 24 hours.
Reuters reported that the Paris Club of Credit Nations is ready to provide financing assurances to Sri Lanka.
Reuters said that the informal group of bilateral lenders is set to soon announce its support to the crisis-hit nation on a debt overhaul. The Asian island nation, which is grappling with soaring inflation, a recession and currency depreciation, entered into a staff-level agreement with the IMF last September. But it needs financing assurances from key bilateral lenders before the fund's executive board approves the program. China and India, both non-Paris Club members, are the top bilateral lenders. Reuters, quoting a source, said the Paris Club assurance is not reliant on China. Another source said the informal group is currently reaching out to other non-Paris Club members besides China on financing assurances. India previously committed to help ease the debt burden of neighbor Sri Lanka as part of the IMF program, and China's Exim Bank offered a 2-year moratorium in a letter sent to the island nation in January. While the IMF has not yet provided any guidance on where the lender stands regarding China's assurances to Sri Lanka, US Undersecretary of State Victoria Nuland, visiting Colombo on Wednesday, said Beijing has not done enough.
Member states of the Universal Periodic Review Group have made a series of recommendations for Sri Lanka during the 42nd session yesterday.
Sri Lanka's national report under the fourth cycle of the Universal Periodic Review was taken up at the UNHRC in Geneva on Wednesday. 106 member states spoke at the meeting, and the UPR 42 working group is set to adopt the report on Sri Lanka on Friday, the 3rd of February at 4:30 p.m. Geneva time. Member states in general made 22 recommendations to Sri Lanka. Repeal and replace the anti-terrorism legislation, abolish the death penalty, strengthen women's rights and empowerment, protect and promote the rights of LGBTI+ people, promote continuing human rights education, prevent gender-based violence, raise awareness of human rights, especially for young people, decriminalize consensual same-sex acts between adults, ratify the second optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ratify the Convention on the Rights of the Child, fully implement transitional justice mechanism, take further measures to combat violence against children, criminalize marital rape, eradicates female genital mutilation, ensure access to sexual and reproductive health, promote religious tolerance, freedom of expression and peaceful protest, combat hate speech, strengthen the protection of rights of migrants, implement Human Rights Council resolutions promoting national reconciliation, take measures to ensure the participation of women in social and political life, take further measures to prevent sexual violence and domestic violence, review labour policy restricting women's right to work. In addition, India wanted Sri Lanka to implement the 13th Amendment to the Constitution and call for early provincial council elections.
A UN report has revealed that 4.8 million children require access to uninterrupted education in Sri Lanka.
The revised UN humanitarian needs and priorities have estimated that 7 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance due to economic crisis, including 2.3 million children. Essential services for children such as health, nutrition, education have been severely hampered by shortages of medicine, food insecurity, lack of fuel and long power cuts. It's said that 4.8 million children require access to uninterrupted education in Sri Lanka.
Meanwhile, New Zealand has advised its citizens to exercise increased caution in Sri Lanka due to the impacts of the economic crisis, the potential for civil unrest and the risk of terrorism.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade for New Zealand in its official portal noted that Sri Lanka has stabilised somewhat since the widespread shortages and associated large protest and consequent changes in political leadership in mid-2022. There are still sporadic shortages of basic goods including medicines and some food due to the economic position of the country and living conditions of Sri Lankans which have significantly deteriorated in the past year. It added that there is a restricted, limited supply of fuel including diesel, petrol and cooking gas which is being rationed. The rationing system has reduced queues, but there may occasionally be difficulties or delays obtaining specific types of fuel, particularly outside of Colombo. It added that travellers should ensure they have transport plans and contingency plans in place ahead of any journeys to or around Sri Lanka. It also advises New Zealanders in Sri Lanka to avoid protests, demonstrations, political rallies, events and large crowds and queues. On terrorism, New Zealand says that there is an ongoing threat of terrorism in Sri Lanka. It added that in response to 2019 April attacks, the country's security presence has increased and security has since improved across the country.
We are just 2 days away from the 75th Independence Day celebrations, and the small island nation called Sri Lanka has paid a heavy price to secure this independence. This heavy price came in terms of many sacrifices by valiant and brave warriors.
We start tonight's journey from the kingdom of Sitawaka. The kingdom of Sitawaka was born following the infamous Vijayaba Kollaya, and it was considered to be the most powerful among all kingdoms in the country at the time. During the same period, the Portuguese had placed themselves as the guardians of the neighbouring kingdom of Kotte. Prince Tikiri was the son of King Mayadunne of the kingdom of Sitawaka, and being a fearless warrior, he wanted the Portuguese driven out of the entire island. The Portuguese, however, were well aware of his intentions and decided to conquer the kingdom of Sitawaka with the army of the kingdom of Kotte. However, Prince Tikiri proved to be way smarter than what the Portuguese had estimated him to be, and he managed to trap the Portuguese army in Mullairiyava and massacred the advancing enemy forces. This opened a new chapter in Sri Lanka's history books. In addition to introducing guerrilla warfare, Prince Tikiri hit the Portuguese hard with the battle-ready horse cavalry units, Angampura fighters, and even used elephants in the campaign. The Korotota family that exists even today are those who are skilled in Angampura and had made great contributions towards the independence war.
The Battle of Mulleriyawa is considered the worst military defeat the Portuguese, who at the time were considered as fierce invaders and conquerors, had to face in Asia.
The Portuguese, who failed to protect the kingdom of Kotte, reportedly retreated to the Colombo fort with King Don Juan Dharmapala, leaving the kingdom of Kotte open to anyone. It is reported that King Sitawaka Rajasinghe choked the Portuguese stronghold by blocking off all entry and exit points that led to mass starvation among the trapped enemy forces. It is said that in order to survive, they even killed and cooked their own pets.
Another leg of the Sirasa Shakti Poth Yatra book donation campaign took place in Kandy and Mathura today.
The Sirasa Shakti Poth Yatra book donation campaign was launched with the objective of highlighting the true sense of Christmas. From Christmas Day, the book donation campaign has been reaching out to school students across many parts of the country and distributed these items to them. Today's program was held at the Mahayava Takshala College in Kandy. School books, stationeries, school bags and shoes were distributed to the students of the Nautuna Mixed Primary School in Kakanadura, Mathura. The Sirasa Shakti Poth Yatra book donation campaign is made possible with your generous contributions.
A story of undying hope in a land of undying dreams. The story of a girl who survived. This is the story of Diniti.
The story of Diniti is one of perseverance. Stay tuned right after the news for Newsfirst original documentary about a story of hope and resilience in the heart of the village. And with that, wrap up news for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Take care and good night.